Mexico used to have libraries and libraries of books, and of course the Spanish burnt everything. About 20 survive.
Wow.
So that's a lot of what I'm drawing from. When the Spanish came, they went to Texcoco and they saw these books and they christened it the Athens of the New World, just because it was this hub of knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to learn that, because then you realize that, oh, we come from this tradition of like intellectuals, of artists, of all these other things.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Israel Campos. You come recommended as someone who's a printmaker. That's how I've kind of come to know your work and stuff. Legendary. You, on your Instagram, it's constantly just you working techniques that I didn't even know about printmaking. So it's actually a pretty educational place to kind of get information. And then in between, when we first started booking, you just had a nice break where you showed with Charlie James, and I have it on good authority that it went well.
Yeah,
just based on the fact that you sold a piece and that you're that seems to go well from that point on.
Yes.
From people that I've interviewed. So congratulations on that, man.
Thank you.
How was how have you shown at that level before? Have you been mostly artist run? Have you been doing commercial spaces and stuff?
Commercial spaces, yes. All different sizes. Last year, I was invited to a retrospective at the Oakland Museum of California for Malaquias Montoya. So they had several of my pieces, and then they had a big projection that they had me do. So that was really fun.
That's awesome.
Getting the opportunity to go over there.
Don't let me forget about the projection, because I want to know more about that.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff I want to ask you about practice and all of that, because yours is a very technical practice, right? Like it's almost like even more deliberate than like ceramics, because ceramics, even when you're like mixing chemistry and powders, there's still some level of like, I think you have like a pretty exacting control, and your drawing skills have to be pretty amazing to do printmaking to begin with. So we'll get into that, but I always like to start with people's early origins in art and as a person. So you were telling me before that you grew up in South Central.
Yes, so I grew up in South Central. I still live there. I really like the area. At the time when I was growing up there, it was transitioning from being predominantly Black, and then it was becoming more predominantly Hispanic, specifically Mexican. So at the time, it was this in limbo stage where there was actually a lot of conflict between the Black community and the Mexican community, just because they were competing for jobs, they were competing for resources. So that was my upbringing. And then
when you say jobs, what are we talking about? Like like jobs in the neighborhood kind of thing?
Jobs in the neighborhood. It was a lot of costura. That's what my parents were working with. It was unfair to the Black community because the Mexicans were willing to work for under minimum wage.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't compete. And eventually they did have to move. And then that's what I grew up with, a bunch of sewing machines all over the place. That's what I would wake up to, fall asleep to. And then
like the sound.
The sound. I think that's why I'm a really good sleeper now, because this noise doesn't bother me at all.
That's amazing.
And then we would help our parents. They call it rimear when they sew the pieces. There's extra strings, so you have to cut that. And then we had to count everything into bundles, which was actually kind of fun. I really liked it. Just that we were all hanging out. My parents were sewing, and then we were cutting and putting everything in bundles.
So what were you actually making? Because this might be the machismo that I inherited from only watching car shows, but mostly when I see men sewing, it's upholstery and as a craft. What this doesn't sound like that's what it was.
This was industrial sewing, so it was essentially assembly lines. So sometimes they just did pockets, sometimes they did the seam of the pants, sometimes they did the shirt, this part right here.
Yeah.
and they would do one section and then they would hand it over to the other person. So it was very much like an assembly.
Yeah, yeah. Would it fall under sweatshop or?
Some of them were at the time.
I mean, that's not funny, but
it was interesting because a lot of stuff that's happening right now with ICE, it was also happening back then. They would lock the doors from the factories, mainly so that it would be a hurdle when somebody was trying to come in. It was like a little security. Somebody's trying to get in, so get out from the back.
Oh, really?
Yes. And then sometimes...
well, there was like a big fire in New York where they like locked people in and then they just didn't unlock it. So
yeah,
that's my first thought was anxiety.
Yeah, although they preferred it because then if ICE were to come in, that was that extra minute or two they had to escape.
Yeah. And it's not like nowadays where if you're on private property, they can't go in.
Yeah,
I'm sure back then it was like, fuck it. They're brown.
There was more like they just went through it.
Yeah. Not that I'm saying that ICE has restraint now, but I'm just saying like there's more visibility and there's cameras and shit.
Yeah,
know? Like
that's definitely true.
You know, like I doubt that there were people with cameras asking people for their information so that they could track them down and stuff like that, you know? Like, yeah.
But it was also, I mean, some of my uncles did get caught, but it was like they would come back like the next week or whatever.
Just across the border?
Yeah, they just crossed the border again.
Yeah.
And they did it multiple times. So it's always been an inconvenience more than anything.
Yeah.
Until you get too old, then it's impossible. But while you're young, you just jump again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would be too old at this point. 45 seems pretty old, although I'm sure people do it. It's just my constitution and my lifestyle do not allow for that kind of fucking fitness. Well, that's crazy. Well, so then in this community of criminality. When you were talking, I was like, because I'll watch YouTube from different perspectives, and sometimes I'm just like cringe. Like there's people that I agree with on some things, but then when it comes to the ICE thing, I'm like, oh god damn, you're such an idiot. And just listening to you talk, I was like, oh, those people would not like this. And I'm like, cool, I'm proud of myself for having my own thoughts. But yeah, dude. So tell me about like the way that I like to frame it. Two main milestones in an artist's career. One, I mean, the first one can be anything, and it can be like you could have 17 of them. Just whatever comes to mind would be the first time that you looking back and you remember and like, oh man, makes sense that I ended up becoming an artist. And then the moment as you get older where you're like, oh no, fuck, I am an artist. I don't have a choice. Take me through that.
So for me, I think because English was my second language, I really couldn't express myself in school, especially.
Were you born in the U.S.?
I was born in the U.S.
You just, okay, yeah, English was my second language too.
Yeah, so the way my neighborhood worked is because, again, everybody is primarily Mexican. Spanish is the primary language. So I was in ESL classes up to like maybe 5th grade. That's when my first official English class was all English.
How was that transition?
Were
you ready? Did you feel?
Well, I mean, when you're young, you pick up languages pretty easily. The advantage is that I can speak Spanish very well because I had an elementary education.
Yeah.
And then...
Wait, your elementary education was in Spanish?
Yeah, it was all in Spanish.
Oh, cool.
Except for the 1st grade. Then it was English.
That's awesome.
And then,
I speak Spanish because of my grandmother.
Yeah, then my parents still speak Spanish. And I mean, I speak Spanish at home all the time.
My grandmother understood English and would like listen in, but never acknowledge that she spoke it. So it was always speaking in Spanish to her, but she knew more than she put on. And then like, I remember my grandfather would negotiate with people. He also didn't speak English, but then like when he would get one over on like a tree trimmer, he would be like, yeah, he speaks English pretty good.
Nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, so it was more, I guess I started to draw because that was one way to express yourself.
What were you drawing?
I was drawing a bunch of cars. I mean, I was really into cars at the time.
Like what muscle cars?
I think it was mainly muscle cars, just for
Okay.
fun, and then landscapes, houses. I wasn't really drawing people too much.
Were you doing it plein air or were you drawing for imagination?
Just from imagination, and then copying cartoons. And it was nice because it was one way to communicate some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you couldn't verbalize them, you could visualize them, and that was one way that I saw that, oh, this is fun. And then the other thing that was very important in my neighborhood, there's a lot of like murals. There's a lot of graffiti, so that was also very influential.
Mm-hmm.
The market that I used to go to, there's this really nice tile work from this artist, Chicano artist from the 70s. So it's two panels. One is of the indigenous people surrounding the eagle with the nopal, and on the other side is the more modern version of like the city. And I always liked that mural because I didn't understand what it was depicting, but I really liked the imagery. And
was it because out here there are murals, but they're not necessarily in a graffiti style?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Tagger, or like not Tagger, but like the grand bubbly kind of like what we think of when we think of street art, or was it more like LA based kind of style?
It was more, I think this guy was working like fine art, so it
was like painting.
Yeah. But we had a lot of the bubbly stuff too.
Yeah. No, I figured. Yeah,
and I like that because it showed me this image that I thought was very beautiful, and I wanted to learn more about it. So it got me curious, and I think that's what I liked it. And then I realized as I was growing older that that's one of the things that art does. It can strike those thought processes in people where they want to learn more and they want to find out more.
But it also makes sense that you're highlighting the fact that you're learning to communicate in a new way while you're also learning while you're somewhere in a limbo of like being in the US, learning how to speak English, doing ESOL and all of that, and then eventually getting to like, it's another way of expressing ideas that maybe is more fluid than learning an entirely new language, right? Like visual language, I think maybe is a little bit more intuitive, especially with spelling, English spelling. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that was the case. It was just easier to communicate my ideas visually at the time. And it's just something that I kept doing. And then I kept doing it throughout elementary school, middle school, high school. And then I went to college, and then...
You already knew you were going to study art when you went to college, or...
No.
You did community college first then?
No, I just went straight to UC Santa Cruz.
Okay.
So I was going to be like a science major.
All right.
Because at the time I was like, well, there's no way I can make a living out of being an artist, right? But I always kept taking art classes. I couldn't stay away, so I always...
When did printmaking come into this? Because that's your thing, right? Like, I know we talked a little bit about how I want to know more about the projections, but are you a printmaker idea? Like, is that how you identify, or are you just artist and then you include the drawing side?
I think, I primarily identify myself as an artist. I like drawing a lot, but once I learned printmaking, I was like, why would I spend time drawing when I can just make a plate? That way I can do multiples.
Yeah. And refine it too.
Refine it, so it's a lot more fun. I actually don't draw too much anymore because I go directly to the plate.
What tools do you use? We'll get to that. Finish your story. I'm already excited. Finish what you were saying. Sorry.
So then I was taking classes in college, and then I learned about the Mexican printmakers, and that really was the catalyst where I saw, well, here's the whole history of Mexican artists who are also working with these mediums, and I could easily see myself part of that. So that was very good. Because before that, I was mainly looking at like European paintings, which was really nice, but it was also like, what else? What else is there?
Yeah.
But when I learned about the Mexican printmakers, then I was like, oh, they're actually depicting things that I'm very familiar with, that I actually really like.
Cultural references.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So then I wanted to insert myself into that. And that's why I started doing more and more and more.
When did you just give up on science?
I ended up with a bachelor's in mathematics.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I never really get off. I mean, I still
one of the rare artists that's good at math. It makes sense that you would be meticulous and do,
yes.
do printmaking.
I really like. I mean, I'm still very curious about everything. I'm reading this book about the ecology of LA right now, just trying to learn more about the different things that we are seeing, like the fires and whatnot. So that never really left. I think an artist is just someone who's very curious about the world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's something that I am. I'm very curious.
So then, what were you? Did you get into printmaking before you found Mexican printmakers? Were you already into the technique, or was it seeing the work expressed that way that made you really?
I had to see the work
first.
Yes.
And then you were like, oh, okay, I get this.
Yes, and then that makes sense. And then I also like that it was very difficult. It was very challenging. Because at the time, my parents were still working in the factories, and I didn't feel right being in the studio painting. But if I'm in the studio struggling with this process...
That's the most Catholic shit I've ever heard.
Then it justifies it. They're like, okay, then it's okay.
Wow, man. Yeah. I guess Spanish colonialism didn't skip your family.
No.
That is such a fucking... I get that.
Yes, I mean, I have a Sacred Heart right here. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what's the other one?
Olin, so movement.
Is that like in malocchio at all, or no?
No, I mean, it's just balance. I wanted to balance it.
No, but it's not like the evil eye in Western culture. What does the eye represent in this case?
To continue moving.
Oh, okay.
It's a fifth element, so you have the earth, water, fire, but nothing.
Linulit Dallas multipass.
Yes, nothing happens without movement.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Cool, man. Well then, all right. So then, tell me a little bit about some of these like printmakers that you got into. And then through that, I'll ask you more questions about the actual process. Do you do specifically one kind of printing over another? Are you versatile in different stuff? Because I've mostly seen you do what I think is intaglio.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am familiar with different styles, but I do like etching only because it is the most difficult.
What makes it so difficult?
It's
the drawing it and getting it right?
No, it's putting it in the asset.
Okay.
You never really know how it's going to turn out. Sometimes it turns out well, sometimes it doesn't. Which I do like. I like that sense of chance.
Yeah.
Uncertainty. Because when I'm painting, I feel like sometimes I have too much control. Everything is exactly how you expect it to be to a certain extent. But with the asset, that's that element of chance.
Nice.
Which I really like.
So then who were the ones that, what were some of the main printmakers? Because I had Elias Hernandez on, and his work is like surrealist, but he was really influenced by Mexican surrealists, and that made it almost foreign to me, you know, because I grew up with like whatever cheesy European surrealists, you know, which like it never, I mean, whatever, Dali's great and all that. And all his paintings are like this, you know, like, for people listening, very tiny. But in fact, I went to a show of his prints, which were all just like really vulgar. I almost like his prints better. Yeah, I would look them up. But so who are we talking about? Like specific names that you were into, and then maybe talk a little bit about what the references mean, because for like you may take them for granted, but even though I'm Latino, I'm Cuban, and I don't expect you to know everything about Santeria, you know, and that history. So like what are the things that as an outsider I might miss that really resonate with you?
Yeah, I think the most important series of work that I really liked was the art that was being made during the Mexican Revolution. So here were some artists that were reacting.
When was that?
In the early 1910s, 20s.
That recently shit.
Yes.
Okay.
So the artists were reacting to it, especially in like the 30s after it kind of settled down. And there's this series of lithographs by Orozco. So all the big Mexican muralists, they were also working with prints. Like De Rivera, he was making prints. So Orozco made this series of scenes of the Mexican Revolution. So it's like literally people with the flag, Zapata leading the people.
Who's Zapata?
It's one of the more important revolutionary people in the Mexican Revolution story. So he and Pancho Villa united the North and the South, and they went and marched into the capital and kind of overthrew the old regime. So he was depicting these scenes that it was like a historical document, because it is. He's depicting what's happening. He's reacting to it. And then it's very interesting. One of the images of Zapata is that he made this beautiful painting where he seemed like this very imposing leader. But a couple years later, he revisits that, and Zapata is this very confused general. So you can see how his ideas are changing, how he's seeing this thing unfold, and how he's becoming disillusioned. So that I thought was very powerful, because it allowed me to kind of want to do the same thing. Like, well, if we look at our contemporary situation, how can I insert my voice into that? How can I insert how I'm reacting to it? And I think that's something that I really do a lot in my work now, mainly because I want other people to also think critically about what's happening, and also maybe encourage others to do the same thing, like react. Find an outlet. So that I think was very powerful. Like the muralists from Mexico, I think were the masters of doing that.
Orozco, what's his first name?
Orozco, I have to look it up.
That's okay. I
know
obviously
these
it's
guys.
not Gabriel, because the timing is not right.
Yeah, so I know these guys by their last name.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I that was more of like there's another Orozco.
Yeah, like Orozco, Siqueiros, Rivera.
Well, okay, I'm hearing a lot of things that I think are really interesting, because so I grew up. You may not know this. Listeners might be tired of me telling, I guess, but I grew up in Italy. So until like the age of 12, and then until like 28, I still kept going back. My dad still lived there. So my education is very westernized, even though if I had grown up in Miami, it would be very much about the exile, the diaspora and all of that. Instead, I learned this tradition that was very narrative based. And that's what I'm hearing, like even though it's not Western, the same elements of narrative painting are still there, where you're basically depicting these historical moments as a historical document, instead of like a photograph, which is like a document. It's using the narrative elements that come. There's a whole thing about how photography is poetic, but it's not a narrative form because it doesn't have a beginning, middle, and an end. But like painting can have that because of how you read it and all of that. It's really interesting that basically the narratives of your culture resonated more than with like all the Christian stuff, And I have a lot of friends who are like, I forget who it was. I'm gonna say white guys that were Protestant that visited Italy for the first time, and they were like, holy shit, I finally get the crucifixion, because of all the like the visceralness of like seeing that body on the cross and whatnot. And I wonder, I mean, I don't know. I know that Cuban culture is pretty morbid too. So I know you guys have the Dia de los Muertos and that kind of like, it's like celebration of morbid stuff. So that's like a Catholic, a Catholic story that runs through all of that, you know, like the colonialism. So what were some of the main themes that were happening during the revolution? Because honestly, I didn't even know it was 1910, you know, like I there's so much going on. 1910 was Mexico part of or is California you know how we stole a whole bunch from Mexico? Was that pre-revolution that happened?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And then, so this was, again, Spanish colonialism, obviously, the revolution, or did that revolution against Spanish colonialism happen before?
Yeah, it happened before. It happened like 100 years earlier.
Okay.
So this revolution was to overthrow a dictator, the dictator at the time, Porfirio Diaz.
Okay.
He had essentially been in power for like 30 plus years. And he consolidated power within the elites. The peasants had absolutely no rights to the land. Yeah. So that was one of the big calling cries that Zapata said, Tierra y Libertad, land and liberty. And that has resonated with the people. And they wanted to create a new system of government. So essentially that's what the revolution is this moment where they overthrow the old regime and they try to make something new that is more egalitarian. It does end up being more egalitarian, but maybe not to the extent that they want it to be.
Well, I mean, who's your neighbors? Right? What are they going to allow?
Exactly. And then I think it's been an ongoing process where the people realize that they have this power. And I think it resonates because, I mean, we should be doing the same thing in this country, right? Where we realize that the current regime isn't really looking out for the people.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a model of how that can look like the Mexicans did it. Well, we can do it too.
Yeah, for sure. Was it a violent revolution or not?
Oh, yeah, it was very violent.
Okay. We're not encouraging violence. We're on YouTube. Although it does seem to sometimes be the way that tyrants are overthrown.
Yes. And one of the things that happened was that the church had a lot of power at the time. And the people who supported the church, they allied themselves with the conservatives. And there was this really big Catholic versus secularism at the time. And then after the revolution, the Catholic Church kind of lost its major influence in the country.
I mean, we still have the trauma, right?
Yeah. So aside from being a political revolution, it was also very much a cultural revolution where it was this vision of something new.
Like awakening to secularism?
Secularism, yes, but also this realization that, well, women should have rights too, right? And then your skin color shouldn't dictate how you're gonna end up in life. So it encompassed everything in the society.
Yeah, the church doesn't like that. That's really interesting. Is it fair to say that that it's like a leftist? Because when I interviewed somebody, Juan Pablo Hurtado, he was, I don't even remember what it was, but he was sensitive about something that he said because over there's a very strong, he lives in Jalisco, and he was saying that he was concerned, which was interesting for me as an American to hear about something he said because it might sound a little insensitive to like the class struggle dialogue that happens out there, which is very, very prevalent, which doesn't really happen. Like everything here is race, right? Like, was that more of like, it sounds, I don't want to just assume because my country is communist and then, El Salvador, those problems were also having to do with the left. But is that the case? Was it izquierdista? Was it maybe not quite to the level of sandinistas? Like, where does it fall on the political spectrum? Or was it maybe more center, what they say?
Well, I mean, I guess it was definitely more of a leftist movement if you really think about it. Because again, distribution of land, distribution of rights and all this stuff. One of the first things that the new government did was nationalize the oil in Mexico because it was controlled by foreigners.
I'm sure the U.S. loved that.
Oh yeah, they loved it. So
I'm going to hold off on the question, but the question that's looming over this conversation is like, how long until the U.S. fucked it up? but go ahead, finish what you were saying.
Oh well, I mean, I just think it's very interesting moment in history because it still reverberates, and then that the artists at the time were able to express their opinions about it, their ideas about it. They were trying to influence too the direction. Like Rivera and Kahlo were really into communism, and they wanted to bring that into the country. So I think it was this.
But was the whole art movement there, or were there all?
No, yeah.
It was they were a standout.
Well, I mean, not they were the standouts, but it was just one of other views.
Yeah. No, I meant the standout. Okay, you answered my question. Never mind.
So it's nice because then it teaches me the potential impact that artists can have.
Yeah.
In the ongoing conversations, when you're willing to make a stance, when you're willing to make representations of what is happening, and then hopefully influence and make other people question things.
How do you feel that's going in the art world with artists? Because it's interesting, the idea of, I definitely see it in your work, but in terms of like in the U.S., how did Rivera, didn't he do one in Detroit? He did a mural at the airport in Detroit. So how they fund that?
Yeah, actually, I think the one that he did, they made one that was destroyed because the patron said, you can do it, but you cannot depict this person. And of course, he depicted that person.
Yeah.
So it was torn down, and he got really upset, and he made it again. So I think it's always been this, artists are sort of at the mercy of their patrons or whatever.
Yeah.
But then the artists have to be willing to say, no, it's my idea.
Yeah. No, and I guess that there's a lack of huevos.
Yeah, exactly.
In contemporary art, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I understand where that's coming from.
Do you think that, I don't want to like completely condemn all the artists that listen to this podcast and call them P words, but I wonder how much easier it was to make a living back then. And like, was Rivera getting funded? Like, how was this art getting, what was the patronage for this revolutionary art? And go ahead.
So I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was the government funding these projects, because a lot of the work that he did was murals. And it was a way to beautify the locations, but also Rivera was very mindful about, this is an art form that can't really be owned because it belongs to the people, because it's very public.
Yeah.
So that was how communism was affecting his work, which I really like, because when you think about it, when I was growing up, I was also looking at all these murals. I never went to a museum.
Yeah.
But I was looking at all the work around my neighborhood, and it was free and it was accessible. And I think that's something that has influenced me too. Maybe that's why I do printmaking, because it's multiples, and you can it doesn't
spread it out like leaflets.
Exactly. So there's always,
and it's still tangible. It's not like just digital. Yeah.
So I think there's always workarounds to what the market is doing, and you kind of have to recognize in yourself, what is your end goal? Is it to just be rich with your making your work, or is it because you want to use it for something else? And I think for me, it's always been bigger than just money.
Well, and I think that there's also this idea that like you know, the reality of becoming one of those artists that sells to the most evil people in the world is pretty, like, their price points between here and there. Right. Yeah, so like, so you can influence people of your community with, like, you know, a nice print for whatever. I'm not going to ask you what the rates are, but you get what I'm saying? Like, I doubt you're selling them for hundreds of thousands of dollars that only like oil barons can afford. So, because you know, it's an interesting conversation, especially where we landed, because I've had, Christopher Reyes, I've had him on the show, and he made a very interesting point of like, how revolutionary can you be within a market? But, and I think that, I still think that that's a valid point, although I do think that his work is not devoid of meaning or, you know, revolutionary spirit, or maybe he would find that cringe. But you get what I'm saying? Like, he's a dissident at the very least. He's not like, hey, the system is great. You know, it's more personal about living in the system, right? But I do think that as I get more into the space and interesting, you should be so lucky that you have to deal with that problem of like selling to the most evil. But no, that makes sense. I think that both statements don't negate each other, and we just explored that gray area. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting a spot we landed at. What are your like ambitions then? Since we're talking like because you do show in commercial spaces. Mm-hmm. You're not like, again, I want to be careful how I say this, but you're not looking to be part of a community only, right? Like you're looking to feed yourself essentially, which I think people find as taboo, but I think in the academic climate, it's like kind of revolutionary to want to do that, because all your teachers are like, fuck you, no, that's bad.
Yeah, and I think I've always been very practical about how I've been approaching being an artist. So for the last, 7 years, I was an operations director for a school, which was nice because it gave me the money to be able to purchase all my materials, rent my studio.
Yeah.
And the art has always been kind of a supplement. So I've never really relied on sales, which has been good for me because I've been able to just do what I want to do.
I think you might be heading in that way though.
But I think one thing that has been nice is that because I can set my own prices, depending on the venue, I do change my prices.
Okay.
So I'm going to be at this event on Sunday, Ciendita's Market. And in that event, I'm purposely going to sell everything super cheap.
Yeah.
Versus if I was going to be doing somewhere else, well, let's rate the prices.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I know the people that are going to be there, it's going to be people from my community, and I want to make sure that they are able to get something that they want. And then I think that has been successful for me so far in terms of like being able to have the resources to make more work, but not being confined to this market, which has been good.
No. Yeah. Well, I guess like one of the things that I have come across doing this show, and I end up being on the highly committed upper middle class childhood people, but like a lot of people that had the same background as me or class background as me, I find that they're not as motivated to make it work in terms of finances. I'm fucking highly motivated because at this point I'm overcommitted.
Yes.
But especially with the podcast. But like I think of Christopher Reyes. I think of Tito Whitney. And I'm not saying this is exclusively the case. I feel like, and this is not an indictment, but I think that there are people that are more than happy to just be an artist and have it go, not necessarily nowhere, but nowhere within the market or nowhere within a commercializing sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like they don't care about that validation. They make the work for themselves and all that. But I find that there's an economic, basis for them to feel comfortable doing that, right? Whereas like, if you need money and you're an artist, you kind of have to figure out how to make it work, right? So what do you think about that? Like, because it's a really interesting, Matt Stromberg was on the show. He talked about how the art world is the art world, but like it's really just a bunch of different pockets, Mm-hmm. And I have beef with entire communities that I never run across. Mm-hmm. And I'm active as fuck, and if I see them, like, oh, it's all right, we just don't acknowledge each other. But like, that's how crazy big this place. And
but also very small.
It's also very small when you get into when you get into the higher elements, like I think that there's a split off. I think that there are worlds that never cross. Mm-hmm. But once I start hanging out with people like you, Christopher Reyes and all of that, that's a small community because all of you guys know each other,
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I've come to realize is that when I was in school, the first body of work that I sold were my prints, and that got me very excited.
Yeah,
because it was this window to what I could potentially do. Like I can make a living out of this. But at the time, I was also thinking about, okay, so if I make this, how can I make it so that it's gonna sell out? And I don't necessarily think that was a good mentality because it kind of confines you to the audience, right?
Audience capture.
Yeah, and then I've realized now that I'm older is that one, the audience don't know what they want. You're gonna show them what they need.
Yeah, they don't know what you're gonna make them feel until you make them feel it. Yeah.
And how do you do that? Well, you do that by being very sincere with what you want to do. So you have to realize what you want to accomplish, what you want to say, what you want to communicate. And when you get to the point where you can be very sincere with the work, it's going to resonate. And I think that's how I've been approaching things now. Like I'm exploring things that I want to do. I'm depicting things that I want to do. And then I've been surprised that the more honest I am, the more it captivates people. And I say I'm surprised because for me, I think it's so indulgent.
Oh, that's interesting. Not vulnerable, indulgent. That's really interesting. Because you get to do what you want. Yes, that's amazing.
I'm interested
but that's really cool because that's an experience that a lot of the artists that I know don't have, you know. And as you're talking about it, I was like, yeah, man, I've gotten into situations where I sell art, you know, where like when I was first into photography, I had a show. I've sold enough that I was able to buy a computer, and as an art student, I was selling art student prices, right? I wasn't like, and I don't know why I didn't continue. You know what I mean? And I think part of that was that all my teachers were kind of shitting on my work because it was like really aesthetic photography, and you know, like it's almost like they wanted me to apologize for it, you know, but it was definitely sincere and maybe generic at some points, you know, but I was a fucking student. But no. And then years later, and then for years and years, I just started making art that is like impossible to sell. I'll show you. I made like installations and stuff that were like, they're great, and I'm glad that they're part of my repertoire. But ain't nobody gonna buy that shit, you know. It's like, oh, I'm gonna install this right here and have it running all the time, you know. So I feel like a lot of this podcast and a lot of this podcast is peeling back on the shit that they don't teach you in art school, and maybe healing some of the trauma of like teachers just kind of telling you what their bullshit is about the art world and not really necessarily having anything to do with the actual art world or how it functions. You know, so it's really nice to hear you so upbeat and like, yeah, man, selling's cool. And like not feeling like you're a sellout, but actually feeling that you're self-indulgent.
Yes. And I think that's something that I've become more conscious about. I'm gonna be a professor soon, and then this is one of the things that I'm thinking about. Like, why didn't we learn this in school?
You went to Cal State Long Beach, right?
No, I went to UC Santa Cruz.
But that was your
undergrad.
Undergrad. What was your
my MFA was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Oh, okay. I guess you were introduced to me as a Long Beach head. I don't know why.
Well, I've been to their shows a lot.
Oh, okay.
And I know a lot of Long Beach people.
Oh, so you kick it with the Moonzone Gallery. Yeah. That's cool. It's always nice to clarify these things. So then, okay, so like specifically now, give me some like themes that are showing up in your work that are directly, you know, they don't feel like they're like heavy-handed. They feel like they're a little bit more how am I going to say this? Like philosophical and you know, like what are you working with? You had a really beautiful one that had like people in almost like a parade of traffic walking past. Tell me some of the themes that because there's like there's different modalities, right? That's more of like a figure or a line drawing one. And then you have more stuff that's a little bit more acid burny and stuff. So those are like technical differences within two different prints and so maybe tell me a little bit about what the theme, why am I blanking out? What the motifs are and the methodology, the ethos that you're kind of working with specifically. And then maybe talk a little bit about how, like, why the decision to go more linear in one versus another one. Like what those are like some very direct things that I can point to that are like, okay, why do you make these decisions?
Yeah, so I think maybe the most important thing that I've been playing around with recently has just been with perspective. Because when we're in school, we learn perspective, right? 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, or whatever.
Big fan.
Yeah, and then you learn the history about it, that they considered this revolutionary because the Middle Ages, they didn't know about perspective. So this was obviously an evolution.
Yeah.
But then I've come to realize in my own practice that it's actually very boring.
Well, it's very limiting for sure.
Yeah, it's just very limiting. So then I'm playing with flatness. I'm playing with like...
That's how we all get here.
Yeah.
It's like we learn perspective. Dude, I'm in the same thing. I'm like flatness.
Yes. So it's been fun to explore flatness in terms of like space, but also flatness in terms of like I reference a lot of historical imagery, and I like the idea of collapsing that too. Like you collapse the centuries.
Okay.
And you depict it all in one imagery, and I think that's really fun. Mainly because it makes me realize that I am a part of something bigger. It's not just this moment. It has a lineage. And then when you tap into that, it empowers you and emboldens you. And I think that's something that I would want to communicate to people, that yes, we live in the United States now, but you weren't always here. Your family wasn't always here. So where is your ancestry from? And I think it's fun to ask people that, especially if they don't know. Like a lot of European Americans, they have no idea. But then when you ask them this, they're like, oh, wait, why don't I know?
The other thing that's kind of weird is I always get a little weirded out by Americans that are very much attached to their Irish or English. I'm like, oh, you're really proud of being British, huh? Motherfucker. Yeah. And I feel that less towards Spaniards.
So it's fun to...
Why is that? And I think I just realized is that at least the Spaniards brought culture.
Yeah. Yeah, they learn how to combine cultures, I guess.
Yeah.
Looking at it.
Yeah. One of the things that's crazy about LA that I didn't know this until I recently saw it is that, like, people that haven't been here, downtown LA is diagonal.
Yes.
Like the grid suddenly shifts from vertical to diagonal, and that's a transition between American to Spanish colonial. So the part of downtown LA that's like that is built on the Spanish grid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, there's so much. This is like, this fucking city, if it had been here as long as Rome, it would have as much shit going on. Yes. It would have that collapsing thing that you would...
Interesting. Yeah. And I recently learned the reason why it's tilted, it's the logic that the Spanish had was that that's how you maximize the sun.
Yes. And
I walk around Hoover because that's the on the west side, the border between the American city and then the Spanish city, and you do see it. The sun kind of like passes through all the buildings and you can see everything, whereas the American side, there becomes a lot of shadows. So maybe there was some logic to it.
No, it makes sense. It's the British were... We'll not get into it. My mom and I. So I grew up in the UN. And so we have a lot of feelings about the British and how they interact with the rest of the international community. It's always a very, very revelatory experience. And then sometimes you're just like, why did you do? Oh,
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I mean, that's really like interesting. Anything that you like that I'm missing from your work, like that I don't really, because I mean I've only seen it through Instagram. So, anything that I don't know that you want me to know about?
Well, I guess the other most important thing is that the way that I'm depicting the forms are drawing from the Mesoamerican tradition, like the way that you depict the body from the codices and then the murals that they have over there. Mainly because I wanted to reclaim that. I wanted to say that I'm following this tradition instead of the European tradition. And I think it's important to reclaim it because it's part of our heritage. And I think it's it empowers us because it makes us realize that we have a long history.
What are the big Mesoamerican cultures that you draw from? Is it just specifically Aztec, or because I mean that was they were like I've been watching some history stuff as I play video games in the background, and it's interesting. Like there were tribes that hated the Aztecs, and all of that, right? So, like, I think that like everything is just called Aztec in Mexico, but it's not.
No, and everybody hated the Aztec. So there's only one Aztec codex, Mexica, that survives. The other ones are Mixtec. So those are the two primary documents that I'm referencing. So there's this codex called the Codex Borgia, which is now in the Vatican Library. So
motherfuckers.
Yeah, so they took a lot of stuff. So apparently in the early 1500s, it was on vogue to get a bunch of items from Mexico.
Yeah.
So there's actually a lot of feathered paintings that are over in Europe. There's a lot of El Penacho de Montezuma is in the Vienna. So it was this fad to collect objects from Mexico. So again, these codices are these books that they made, which I fell in love with. So Mexico used to have libraries and libraries of books, and of course the Spanish burnt everything. About 20 survive.
Wow.
So that's a lot of what I'm drawing from. And one of the things about those libraries is that when the Spanish came, they went to Texcoco and they saw these books and they christened it the Athens of the New World, just because it was this hub of knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to learn that, because then you realize that, we come from this tradition of like intellectuals, of artists, of all these other things.
When you say codex, what do you mean? Like a Coda Hammurabi text kind of thing, or?
So it's just this generic term that's applied to really old books. So the codices in the New World were accordion books. So they were foldable, like an accordion.
Yeah.
So the tradition being that the text was modular. So there wasn't necessarily a beginning or an end. You could start with one page, fold the book, and then you could change the narrative.
Yeah.
So I really like that way of thinking about things.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
It's fun.
Have you tried to read a manga recently?
Not recently.
You read it backwards. It's like, whoa, my brain is fucking. But it's so funny. Like, it's also really interesting how all that left to right. I remember when people were teaching me, like I was dyslexic, so when I first heard that it got more confusing, I was like, fuck. But I also like don't want to give Spanish colonialism a pass, because I know I said that they brought culture, but it should not be forgotten. And I think one of the things that no one ever really talks about is like how Cortez and all of that was like sex slave, it was sex trafficking, and people in his contingent were jealous that he was keeping all the good sex slaves to himself. And they were like, so this was pretty fucking a horrific culture that came in and just burnt all this shit. Even though I have nostalgia for the Italian art that it funded, it was definitely a horrible fucking thing, and it sucks that they burned all that stuff. And a lot of the, like, as I'm getting more deep into it, I'm realizing that a lot of the stuff that we know about them is like first-hand accounts from people that are grandiose about themselves and are always the smartest person in the story.
Yeah.
Which, hey man, that's how I would do it. Well, cool, man. Anything that I haven't asked you about that anything about growing up that maybe I didn't ask you about, that you, or any question that I asked you that you haven't had a chance to answer because I changed the subject? It's okay if you don't.
Nothing that comes to mind right now. I guess just the work is just exploring everything that I've said. Another thing that I've been exploring recently has just been like mythology, because I really like ancient Greek mythology, right? It's fun.
Yeah.
But there's a tradition of that in Mexico, and like we all know the story of, I don't know, Venus. She's the goddess of love, or Cupid. If he stabs you, you become in love. But that was a similar tradition in Mexico. So I've been exploring this and trying to depict that imagery, just to get people more familiar with that different mythology, because I think it's really fun.
So it's similar themes but different characters kind of thing?
Essentially, you kind of realize that humans have the same story being told over and over and over again.
Yeah, there's a lot of incest in there, I guess.
Of incest. Although it's funny because the story of incest in Mexico, again, it was Quetzalcoatl. He got super wasted, and he was tricked to having sex with his sister, and he was so ashamed of it that he left the city, and he set himself on fire, and he became Venus, the planet Venus.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting, right? Like this story of incest turns into the planet Venus, and then in Europe, it's there's different stories, but one of them is that they cut off Cronus's balls and they throw them to the sea, and they foam out, and Venus shows up.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, they were looking at the same sky, right? Yeah. There's a division of archaeology that's kind of like considered fringe about, like, I forget what the name is, but it's about like studying astronomy. Astrology is the fake one, right?
Yes.
Or not the fake one, the narrative one. So astronomy, like, so basically their relationship to the stars. And it's really crazy to think about, like, especially hearing that these narratives are the same and they all end up in the sky. You know, it's like, oh yeah, weird incest and Venus. So that I think that's probably the common theme, is just being able to, like, man, when was the last time you were somewhere so dark you could see the Milky Way and you were like, oh shit, that's fucking there?
A long time. I don't even remember.
Yeah, especially living in this town. Although the desert's not too far, so it shouldn't be too hard. I would do it. The place to go for me in Miami was the Everglades, and that was always terrifying because there's gators out there. There's no light. But cool, man. Anything that we can promote for you? You've got, well, I don't know that this will come out, but plug the show. What's the name of the show at Charlie James that you're part of?
Soy America.
Soy America.
So curated by Ever Velasquez. Great show. If you guys are able to check it out, that's currently going on right now.
I just had the genius idea of trying to get Ever on the show.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. She's definitely someone that is in charge of a space that gets a lot of love on this podcast. So
for sure,
I would love to have her. Anything? Okay, so, and your Instagram?
Israel Campos Art.
By the way, my grandfather on my dad's side's name is, I should maybe not be so specific, is Israel. And in my family, there was always a myth that we were like crypto Jews because of that. Yeah. But you're like, you're just Catholic, right?
Yes, we're just Catholic.
Any ideas of where the origin of the name Israel comes from in that perspective?
My dad named all of me and my siblings very unique names. So he just liked unique names, and he's like, it's going to be Israel. So
interesting. Are people giving you shit these days?
No, never.
They're like, that would be crazy.
I agree.
Anyway, well, thank you guys for watching. We'll be, if you like the conversation, like and subscribe. It really helps us. Comment. Give us any historical perspectives you have in the comments about this stuff. I definitely would love to know more about the deities, like it's just, you know, I don't want to make you work that hard. But yeah, anything that you guys find interesting, comment on that. And then we have the Patreon. Here's the Patreon scroll. Thanks to our patrons. And if you want to become a patron, you can get on the scroll, and we will we release episodes a week early for you guys to check it out. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. Thank you, Israel.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem.